The Baltimore Ravens extend their winning streak to 4 after their big win over the Washington Commanders in Week 6. We talk about all that happened, the quarterback battle between Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels, and so much more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Allstriker of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here on this instant reaction post-game edition of the show and making us your first listen each and every day and just a part of your day in general. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form, wherever you get your shows and your podcasts, we are there for you as well. 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. And of course, today's episode, this instant reaction show of Locked On Ravens, is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Man, what an epic quarterback battle that we saw today between Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels. We have a stat here from Jonas Shaffer, the Baltimore Bear, and to kick it off, Lamar finished 20 for 26 for 323 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. His 12.4 yards per attempt were the most of the season and 5th most of his career. So Lamar Jackson slicing and dicing this Washington defense up, and I thought that both quarterbacks played outstanding football. So here today, we're obviously going to be diving into what transpired with Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels. We can talk about the defense bending but not breaking on the Baltimore side of things, because there were certainly some bends throughout this thing, but I was really impressed with Baltimore's ability for the most part, to not break. But man, crazy game. Absolutely crazy. Appreciate everybody who is here. Again, we do go live after every single Ravens game. And Joe saying, don't shave, Kevin, until the Ravens lose. I shaved yesterday and they won. So I don't know. The shaving has no correlation. I want to put that out there now. Jeremy, how about King Henry? The closer. I called him the Felix Bautista of the Ravens for those who were Orioles fans in here as well. He is an absolute unit. But, I mean, man, so many different storylines, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. So let's start with Lamar, and then we'll kind of work our way down the offense, because there are a lot of guys that we have to talk about today. First of all, we read off Lamar's stats, but I thought one of the things that really impressed me with Lamar is, again, he's just so cool, calm, and collected back there. He never panics. Like he never does. And in this game, he took what the defense was giving him yet again, and that's something that I have said. If you've been listening to me for a while on this show, I have said that Lamar's done a great job of that this season. Only 6 different receivers hit today, but he was picking his spots so effectively. And when a guy broke open, Lamar already had that ball out or was in his motion, because he had that trust in his receivers. So when Zay Flowers broke out of a route, boom, that ball would be there. When Bateman turned back, boom, that ball would be there. Mark Andrews, man, he got involved in this game. We'll talk about him in a couple of minutes, but I thought Lamar was dotting up receivers and taking advantage, because the Commanders, they were trying to stay honest with everything. They were trying to stay honest in the box, which they had to do. They were trying to stay honest in the play action, which of course you have to do. But then that leaves one-on-one opportunities. And I think Tony Romo said this coming out of halftime, if you were watching on the broadcast, but he said you got to start shading the safety towards Zay. And we saw this. Peter King went to Ravens training camp last year, right, with Zay. And the thing that he said was, in order to slow down / stop Zay Flowers, you either have to hold him or you have to tackle him before the ball gets there. That's how good of a route runner he is. He was slicing and dicing whoever was there. But, man, I was so impressed with the way Lamar threw this ball around on the day. Baltimore did great on third down opportunities, 6 of 10. This is one of the ways the Ravens won the game today. 6 of 10 on third down. Commanders go 4 of 12. That's a huge swing, and the Commanders defense could not get off the field while the Ravens defense did. So you have to shout out what this team was able to do on third down. And it just felt like even when there was a penalty on this team, the Commanders secondary, I was honestly a little surprised, because look, the Commanders, their run defense actually did pretty decently against Derrick Henry and company. I mean, I say only, right? Only 4.8 yards per attempt, which for a Ravens offense, it's actually not bad. It was the Commanders' passing defense that was actually the one that was bad today. Benjamin St-Juste was getting cooked on every single turn. You know, Mike Saren still had the interception that bounced off of Mark Andrews' hands, and I want to make it clear right now, not Lamar's fault. The ball was in a position where Mark can catch that football. Mark is a good enough player, we know that, to catch that ball. So both of Lamar's interceptions this season coming off of bounced off of Ravens receivers. But the Ravens were able to recover. And we'll talk about it in the second part of the show. The defense with their bend but don't break ability. Man, this team is back. Lamar Jackson improved to 22-1 as a starter against the NFC. If you're into the Johnny hype, Lamar Jackson is 4-0 since retweeting the Johnny tweet. So there's also that. But we're starting to see this offense come into its own, where I feel like with Todd Monken and this group, the play calling can be a little suspect at times, but overall, I think he's learning how to use Zay Flowers more each and every single week. He's figuring out how to use Derrick Henry more each and every single week, rotating in Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. All really awesome things for Todd Monken and this group. Both teams, again, the big difference here, I think, was in first downs and third downs in particular, because with the Ravens converting on more third downs, it kept the Washington defense on the field. And all the manpower that you have to accumulate to try to stop Lamar Jackson, to try to stop Derrick Henry. I mean, look, if you're trying to stop the Ravens, you have to understand that, yes, you're probably going to try to sell out to stop the run before you try to empty those boxes and try to play the pass. But guess what? Lamar is a heck of a thrower, and we all know that. And there were some comments this week in the national media, particularly by some former players, former Steelers, that look pretty silly now, don't they? We talked about that throughout the week. And look, it's not a slight on Jayden Daniels, man. Jayden Daniels played a heck of a football game too, and I have nothing but respect for Jayden Daniels. He's already a heck of a ball player and is going to be a heck of a ball player throughout his career. But as I kind of talked about, if you've been with me on Locked On Ravens, you listened to the shows this week, I had said putting these expectations and these comments on Jayden Daniels, these national media members and people who are making those comparisons are cashing checks or are writing checks that Jayden Daniels has to cash, right? When you're saying, oh, Jayden Daniels better than Lamar Jackson as a passer, and oh, we're talking about MVP. Those are checks that those guys are writing that Jayden Daniels has to cash. And look, Jayden Daniels had a heck of a game. Jayden Daniels made big-time throws, big-time decisions, but we're talking about a rookie in week 5 who is playing great football versus a 2-time MVP in year 7 who is playing great football. I think we can all appreciate that quarterback battle and say to Washington that, look, their time might be coming, but Baltimore's time is now. And for Washington, we're going to see the growth. But for the Ravens, they are trying to grow into the Super Bowl contender that we all know they can be. For Washington, I think they're a couple of years away, but I think that rebuild gets accelerated with Jayden Daniels at the helm. Let's talk about Zay a little bit more, because Lamar is obviously favoring Zay in this offense. I mean, as he should. Zay is running crisp routes, getting open, and making sure that he is in the right spot for Lamar to dot that football in. I mean, another game over. He was over 100 before halftime. I mean, it was unbelievable. He's breaking Ravens records, and I'll pull up the stats quickly. And again, I'm trying to also peruse through Twitter as we're doing this live. So any comments that John Harbaugh might have, that Lamar might have, I'm going to try to read those out as we can. And, actually, I'm seeing now John Harbaugh's news conference ended abruptly. Harbaugh went back to the locker room to make a call to check on his brother who was in the blue medical tent during the Chargers game. I did not realize that happened, man. So prayers up to Jim, and hopefully everything is okay for the Chargers there. But Zay, going back to Zay, said that the offense has a few things to improve upon, but believes they're one of the best offenses in the league. And I think they are too. When they play to their strengths, this offense is absolutely one of the best in the entire league, because with all you have to do to sell out to stop the run, Zay beat you one-on-one. I thought Rashad Bateman, shout out to Rashad Bateman, man. These last 2 games, I think, have been the 2 best games of his career, maybe not including that Miami game or maybe the Jets game or a couple of other very finite ones. But I think Rashad Bateman is playing the best football of his career right now. He is opening up the offense a little more. He is finding soft spots in the defense. And something that I've noticed, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I certainly have, is one, this Ravens team, for the most part, is generally healthy this season. And specifically in terms of season ending stuff, I don't think there was anything there. But these guys are getting down. Like, they're fighting for extra yards, but they're doing this like they're diving forward when they know that they're about to get crunched in on by 3 guys. They're diving forward for 3 extra yards, diving forward for 4 extra yards, doing 2 things simultaneously, keeping their body out of harm's way and fighting for extra yards. Because there'd be one thing if they were just catching the ball, giving up, and then that was it. But they're not doing that. I think it's a very smart thing. It might be a tactical change in kind of how the Ravens do things this year. But we see Rashad do it. We see Zay do it. We see Lamar do it. We've seen a lot of these guys do it. So, man, to see this offense humming the way that it is, and to see Mark Andrews, by the way, shout out to Mark coming back, 3 for 66 and a score for Mark Andrews. Must have felt so good for him to kind of get that first touchdown of the year and make sure that he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. And maybe we'll start to see a more free Mark Andrews. We do have to criticize him for the interception. That was his fault, and that you can't drop balls like that, right? We're here to fairly criticize when it's due, and also to go and make sure that we give praise when it's due. And so Mark bounced back from that play. He did. Shout out to Mark for doing that, but that play can't happen. It cannot happen. Derrick Henry, 24 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. You know how we're kind of numb to Lamar Jackson performances. We're 6 games into the Derrick Henry Ravens experience, and I'm just like, 24 for 132 and 2 touchdowns for Derrick Henry. Okay, that's all right. Like, it's expected from him. Like, he's so good in this offense. It plays exactly to what he wants, and it fits his skill set in the way that he runs so perfectly that you're like, 24 for 132. All right, that's pretty solid. That's solid. But I think we're already being a little spoiled by Derrick Henry with the 87-yard run, some of these awesome touchdowns he's had so far this season. And we're just kind of like, okay, that's kind of cool. But man, no, Derrick wasn't the typical big day from Derrick Henry. Like, we're not talking right around 200 yards, but it was still a good day for Derrick Henry. Justice Hill and Zay Flowers combined for 2 carries for 4 yards. Really not a big Justice Hill game in this one. Lamar had 11 for 40. I thought Washington did a good job of defending the run, all things considered. But at the end of the day, the pass offense was what got this thing going. Lamar Jackson, again, goes for over 300 yards, and he is my front runner right now for MVP. I don't care who else is in there. Joe Burrow's not in it for me because of his record. Baker and that team looks awesome down in Tampa Bay. Huge primetime matchup coming up next week. I think that's going to be, again, we see Lamar enter all these battle for MVPs with a lot of quarterbacks. Maybe another one here, but Lamar is absolutely playing like an MVP. But guess what? Baker Mayfield and that Bucs team is going to be a heck of a challenge next week. But we're not done talking about this Ravens-Commanders game. Coming up in the second part of the show, I see a lot of comments about the defensive side of the ball. We'll get into what happened, Jayden Daniels and his performance, and so much more coming up here on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. First, this show is brought to you and sponsored by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold, currently a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited deposit bonuses, 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold memberships is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. And the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And for PrizePicks, I love going on their area, seeing everything that they have to offer. They have a ton every single week. You can now earn up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So for this Ravens and Commanders game, you picked more on Lamar Jackson passing yards, more on Zay Flowers receiving yards. Probably living large over on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We are back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here after the Washington Commanders lose to the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore gets the better of the Commanders in Week 6. And I had this score right around 31-18. I was 30-23 was the actual score. So I would say I'm pretty close there, but appreciate everybody for tuning into the show after the Ravens beat the Commanders. We're having so much awesome growth here on Locked On Ravens. We're almost to 9,000 subscribers. So if you're here in video form, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Actually, at 10,000 subscribers, my first day doing this, I promised that I would wear, those styrofoam cups, those like pixie cups. I would wear a full styrofoam cup outfit for a full week once we hit 10,000 subscribers. So be sure to subscribe to get on that action. Audio form is growing. It's such a high rate as well. It's been awesome. And this team is fun covering, especially when they win 4 straight games like this. And I see Kieran had 31-24. So shout out to you, man. Shout out to you on that. Defensively for the Ravens, let's talk about that. Jayden Daniels had a heck of a game. 24 of 35, 269, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, average 7.7 yards per throw. Man, I think it's been awesome. And hey, I went on the Command This podcast earlier in the week. Yeah, I almost nailed it. I was going back and forth. I said 31-24, 31-18. I ended up going 31-24 on their show. So right there. So close. Appreciate you guys for having me. Appreciate you, Steve. But man, Jayden Daniels with a heck of a game. I can't say enough good things about him, but you have to credit the Ravens defense for a couple of things here. One, they gave up some big completions. Middle of the field seemed to be always open in this one. Roquan had a tough day in particular. Marlon got lost on some plays. Brandon Stevens, Nate Wiggins, Marcus Williams got turned around and frozen by Jayden Daniels on that earlier touchdown to Terry McLaurin. But the Commanders got, I don't know, let's say what? Ravens 45-yard line, Ravens 40-yard line, Ravens 35-yard line. And those possessions, for the most part, all ended in punts. And that's huge. Even just keeping 3 points off the board. And shout out to offensive member, but actually member of the special teams, Mr. Ben Cleveland, blocking an Austin Seibert field goal at the end of the half. That it's like those little plays. We saw those throughout the game. Lamar Jackson playing defense on that interception, tackles Mike Sandstro, and prevents a touchdown. Commanders only get 3 points out of that drive. But the Ravens defense, despite giving up big plays throughout the entirety of the game, and look, that's something that has to be improved upon, especially going to Tampa, which that offense is explosive. But you have to be able, if you're giving up those big plays, to shut the water off elsewhere. Shut the water off. And we know, we've talked about it, if you've been here with me on Locked On Ravens for multiple different years. Despite Jayden Daniels making those plays, the Baltimore defense bent in those situations, but did not break for the most part. They gave up some touchdowns. Whew. I was kind of fourth quarter, 14-point lead, all those different plays that happened towards the goal line. Then Terry just makes the catch of the year, essentially, against Brandon Stevens. I don't know, man. It is crazy. And yeah, Love, the extra point. The broadcast didn't say that they blocked it, but I think Brent Urban got a pinky on there. I think Brent Urban just barely got his pinky on there, which made that ball look really, really weird. So I don't know. It was a mixed day for the defense. Definitely some concern with the big plays given up. I'm trying to see the yards per play for both teams here now as I am looking through this. Yeah, the Ravens, huge day through the air for them, 11 yards per pass. Washington just 6.7. But it just felt like those timely third down conversions when they happen. Baltimore's defense held strong for the most part on third down, 4-12. Those are good numbers. But it felt like, especially on early first down, some early second down opportunities as well, it's tough. But yeah, in Abdi, this is a great point. Yannick Ngakoue, who again was the yearly Ravens couch signing, I guess, right? The yearly couch signing for this Baltimore Ravens team. Ended up coming in here. That hop chop move that he has, he gets up and just kind of swim chops over there. That to me is like one of the best moves in football, and something that I think is almost unstoppable at this point. So Ngakoue, this was his second elevation for them. So he has one more elevation left, and then obviously they have to make a decision on him. But I thought Ngakoue played great. Kyle Van Noy was a disruptor again. Adafe Owe drew a holding call. But I know that some of the safety stuff is tough, right? Marcus Williams had a couple rough plays in this one again, right? It's been really hard for him to establish rhythm on that touchdown to Terry. The first touchdown to Terry, Brandon Stevens gets kind of rubbed off a little bit. I think it was Zach Ertz who was running up and kind of cuts off Brandon Stevens. So Terry goes into Marcus Williams in his zone, and Williams kind of like freezes and then like gets turned around. And you can't have that. But this is a big thing too. Both major media, Władysław saying this. I've seen it a couple other times as well throughout the chat. These are just the ones that I see right now. Jayden Daniels was not effective with his legs. That's one of the things that has made him one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in this league. Again, not to Lamar Jackson's level, but one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in this league. Jayden Daniels had 6 carries for 22 yards in this game. The Commanders as a whole, 18 for 52, 2.9 yards per carry. The Ravens eliminated that aspect on the ground for Washington, forced them to throw. And I was a little confused because late in that game, 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Dan Quinn was still trying to keep the Ravens honest with the ground game. And I'm just like, they don't care, man. Travis Jones has been balling the entire season. And, I mean, you have other guys in there like Michael Pierce and Nnamdi Madubuike, who's playing great. And the run defense has been incredible. That front four, front seven, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to say, has been great for them. I see Ashley asking the PI on Nate. It was PI. It's tough, but Nate's a young player. He's gotten away with a couple of those. Nate is a grabby player, and he uses that to his advantage at times. But much like we saw with Marlon, especially earlier-ish in his career, Marlon still was technically grabby to an extent. But that, to me, was PI. He also, I think, got away with another one, kind of pulling on the jersey a little bit. But that's what you have to be physical. And the difference between PI and being physical is such a finite line in today's game. So I think, to me, Nate is using his he doesn't, we talk about the frame, we talk about the size concerns with him. He's not afraid, right? He's not afraid to be physical. So I'm fine with Nate taking a couple of PIs this season. Like, I'm fine with that because I would rather him not be playing scared and getting physical and hand fighting with guys than not doing that at all and trying to, kind of say hands off, and then give up, back shoulder throws or whatever it may be. So I'm fine with Nate giving up a couple PIs this season. Obviously, they're tough in certain spots, and look, there's a risk that they can cost you games. But I was okay with the call from the refs there. The Ravens actually got away with a couple of penalties in this game, but I mean, the Ravens were due. They've been due for a game like that for years. There was the helmet to helmet on the Jayden Daniels hit from Kyle Hamilton. There was a phantom call PI. There were a couple other things, but then Lamar doesn't get called going out of bounds when Jeremy Chin rocks him at the end of the game. So again, missed calls on both teams, but I think, in my opinion, like the Ravens were due for a game where, the refs were kind of, I guess, quote unquote, on their side. I'm not messing with that at all. Like, the Ravens have been screwed enough by the refs over the course of their season and honestly the last couple of years, their franchise history, to get a game like that. So defensively for Baltimore, again, you saw a lot of guys step up. Particularly, I thought that Kyle Hamilton was running around with that physicality, right? I'm totally good with Kyle Hamilton doing that, man. He rocked Terry McLaurin. Clean hit, by the way. Glad the officials picked that flag up. And obviously, I mentioned rock Jayden Daniels. Mentioned the front four. They played great. Kyle Van Noy mentioned him. Ardarius Washington, just catch the ball. Just catch the ball. I'm sure between Nate and Ardarius and a couple other guys, those DBs, man, they need to be on the jugs machines. Honestly, get one in the locker room, man. Just be firing those balls. Get James Prochet jugs machine work ethic is what this team needs there. But man, some things to clean up on for sure on the defensive side of the ball. This was definitely a mixed bag defensively, but the stats will say that this was a pretty dominant defensive performance, even though when you watch the game, there are certainly some zones that need to be in a little better. But Jayden Daniels, man, Terry McLaurin, that is a heck of a duo. And Terry got his, and I saw a comment. I can't remember where it was up in the chat, so I apologize. But Terry McLaurin was a guy that you knew you had to stop, and the Ravens unfortunately did not do that. Made multiple big plays throughout the game, 6 for 53, 2 scores. Go into Tampa, you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Those are 2 huge, awesome receivers they have down there in Tampa. You got to be able to stop those guys and make someone else beat you. And, Zach Ertz was that guy. Zach Ertz was beating the Ravens. And that is something, if you stop Terry, you're content with that. But tight ends sometimes this year have been a struggle to cover. And, Roquan, all those guys, safeties, Marlon was on them you have to be able to cover the middle of the field better if you're this team. So we'll talk about that more coming up in the final part of the show. I see we have some more comments on Mark Andrews, more comments on Jayden Daniels, Lamar. So be sure to stay tuned. Plan to dive into an instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. And with FanDuel, there is so much that they have to offer over there. Hey, NFL fans, you saw that season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet for that Ravens and Commanders game. Man, it seems like that Derrick Henry anytime touchdown is just a lock every single week. So if you picked that, obviously congratulations. If you picked Derrick Henry 2 touchdowns, congratulations on that as well. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. We are back, rounding out Locked On Ravens, our final segment. The Baltimore Ravens take care of business against the Washington Commanders by the final score of 30-23. Kevin Oestreicher still here talking with you, breaking everything down. Be sure to like and subscribe here in video form where you can catch these live, or after the fact, you can obviously watch playback in video form or in audio form where the episodes are uploaded, live editions right after they are completed. We'll be back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down even more in this contest. So much to dive into. And I see, Sheeple, we are playing the Buccaneers. The Ravens are asking who the Ravens play next week. Ravens play Tampa Bay, primetime action. And I see Laura. What's up, Laura? Appreciate you checking in here. I saw a comment here from Cam. Kevin, is it fair to say Mark Andrews is back, had a bad drop, then turned into an interception, but looked good besides that? Is it fair to say the Ravens have the best tight end room in the NFL? For sure. 100%. By far, in my opinion, honestly. With Mark, it's tough, right? It's tough because Mark has been so good for so many years, and it's an adjustment to kind of have the play that he has had this year, which is he's not the focal point of the offense. Baltimore spreading the ball around more, but that does not mean that Mark is all of a sudden washed, in my opinion, right? And even after the interception, I'm just like, yeah, man, that's a tough play. I have to make that play. But I remember all the trade conversations and everything going on with that. And, you got to move him for a 5th rounder. Man, even if he's just a decoy out there for 70 snaps and you don't use him for anything else, even that in itself is valuable for this team because, again, it opens up one-on-one opportunities for Zay, for Rashad Bateman, for Isaiah Likely, and with this new found Ravens group that spreads the ball around and makes sure that they are able to not just say, all right, you know what, Mark is down there somewhere, let's just chuck that thing up and see what happens. It keeps the defense honest. It does. You see Nelson Aguilar getting involved with a catch. Bateman gets a couple. Likely gets a couple. Some days Charlie Kohler will have big days. Other days, another guy will step up and have a big performance. That's what makes this offense so dangerous, except when you have the run game going, and then that all of a sudden opens up 10 other doors, right? That's what makes this group so dangerous. And look, this here by win, no one can stop Derrick Henry. They know what's coming, and they still can't stop it. And that's why teams have to sell out to do it. Because you watch Derrick Henry run, and look, over these first 6 weeks, I've been just like, every time he gets the ball, I'm just kind of like, like what's going on? What's happening? Because it's so fun to watch him because he's, first of all, just so much bigger than anybody else. I would, look, if Derrick Henry was running at me, I'd say, good day, sir. Here's your lane. Please take it. I'm not trying to stop that. But at the end of the day, Derrick Henry, you can't tackle him one-on-one for the most part. And some guys do a good job. It's not like he is untackleable one-on-one. But it is so hard to bring him down after first contact. Yards after contact are so good for him. I have to look up the actual numbers on that for Derrick Henry yards after contact. But that's what makes him so good. And so if you're stacking the box and trying to sell out to stop that, what we've talked about on so many shows here on Locked On Ravens, we've talked about it all year, talked about it when Henry was signed back in March. You have to sell out to stop it, and then the Ravens can run play action off of that. And so if you are creeping up as a defense and trying to stop that action, Zay can get behind you. Isaiah Likely can get behind you. Mark Andrews can get behind you. And if you're running those sets, and I see Ashley saying, I want us to run a play with no wide receivers, all 3 tight ends, just super heavy personnel. If they run that play on like a 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1, and you play action off of that, teams are going to be so worried about stopping Derrick Henry. Then you sell out and you have heavy personnel. Teams can't keep up with Mark Andrews. Teams can't keep up with Isaiah Likely, those guys. And that's what made the 2019 Ravens so successful. This offense, I'm very close to already saying this is a better offensive unit than the 2019 Ravens. That was a historic group, but the Ravens are already on pace to shatter those records those NFL records. And why? Because you now have Derrick Henry in that offense. Lamar was in his 2nd season back then. Lamar has 5 more years of experience since that year. He has better receivers around him, a better tight end room around him, and that's honestly crazy. That Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle, Hayden Hurst tight end room, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar is a better tight end room than that. So, yeah, and I see Clifton saying what makes the Ravens dangerous is the way they practice, they focus, game times, what they've been doing in practice. We know John Harbaugh runs a tight ship over there. We know the Ravens, they're not messing around in practice. We know that this team strives for excellence, and, it's about preparation. Some of the best work you can do is game is great, but practice is a whole other thing. And so, hey, you know what, Joe? Let's do it, man. 15-2 for this Ravens team. I'm on board, man. But hey, you know what? Big matchup coming up on Sunday in Houston. This is a great point too. Spreading the ball around makes the offense so dynamic and unpredictable. I wouldn't want to face this team on Sundays. Yeah, man, me neither. Because the unpredictability part of this, Houston, I love that you use this word because that's what it is. And you know what's coming, but you don't know what's coming at the exact same time because there are 10, 15 different things this offense can throw in your face. All these personnel packages and everything that they can do. So when Lamar is dotting up guys, and it's not just the Mark Andrews show or, Zay gets 10 targets, Mark gets 7, and the rest of the guys get like 1 target a game. When Bateman's on, when Likely's on, when you can use guys. And by the way, the Ravens being a screen team, how many years did we talk about this team is like they're a terrible screen team. They can't run screens, and it is just disaster every time. This offense is running screens effectively. Now, and that's another aspect, much like Houston is saying here, that makes them unpredictable because last year early in the season, Todd Monken was trying to do too much, I'd say, with Zay Flowers in the horizontal passing game. Screen passes, reverses, sweep plays. I think he was trying to do too much early in the year last year. And we even saw it a couple of times this year too. But I think that the usage for Zay, Todd Monken is finally figuring out how to effectively use him in the best ways. And that's what I love about this team. So you have to be able to stop that there. And then we know that the defense is talented. It's just not showing on the field in some certain circumstances, right? That's exactly what it is there. And you can hear the car go by outside. And that's what it feels like to watch Derrick Henry run by you, doesn't it? Because Henry's a big guy, but he has that speed, man. He has that speed coming downhill for as many yards as he picks up. Man, the speed is absolutely incredible. Mike asking, is there a better duo than Lamar and Henry? No, I don't. I know there was a lot of debate about best quarterback running back duo, and it was like, oh, is it Jalen Hurts and Saquon, or what's one of these other duos? No, it's Lamar and Derrick Henry. It always has been, and that just is what it is. So, man, and yeah, this is also true. Win. Good point here too. What they forget is that the defense practices against the best dual threat QB in the league. So the Ravens defense effectively was ready, and we saw multiple plays, especially late in the game. Jayden was trying to make some stuff work on the option plays, and the Ravens had that thing sniffed out. And again, no Brian Robinson was big for the Commanders, and that was something the Ravens certainly took advantage of. But both the Ravens and the Commanders were more equipped. I mean, we saw a couple plays. Bobby Wagner brought Lamar down one-on-one, and they were able to collapse on the pocket on Lamar as well. Both these teams were better equipped than other teams to go and stop dual threat quarterbacks because they do practice against them each and every week. So I think, to me, this offense is showing me everything they need to. They're converting in high leverage situations, converting on third down, keeping themselves on the field. And that, to me, is really good. And yeah, I see no boring weddings. Absolutely. Sundays feel good again. First 2 weeks were shaky. But yeah, man, I mean, this is exactly what you want to see from this team. I know there's all this stuff about the Ravens entering the fourth quarter, and especially with how Terry scored on that player, thinking, okay, not again. But the formula for this defense is just hold them. 3 points or no points. A kick on every single possession wins you this football game, wins you any football game with this offense, right? Wins you any game. So that, to me, is a really important aspect on this. But yeah, Brian, Bucks are lighting it up. Going to be, I think, one heck of a shootout game in week 7. Prime time games. Michigan asking, what do I think's wrong with the defense? Some of it's play calling. Some of it is guys not being in their zone. Some of it is guys getting looked off. I mean, we saw it with Jayden Daniels multiple times. He looked off Kyle Hamilton on a play. He looked off Marcus Williams on a play. That's all really tough for a defense. But yeah, and look, I've seen it in Sedarian. Appreciate you for tuning in again, man. Hopefully you're doing well. Bateman, wide receiver 2, going up 100%. He's looked awesome. Brandon Stevens, corner 2. Brandon had some good moments in this game, but he also, if there is a ball coming his direction, 9 times out of 10, his head is not turned. He needs to learn how to locate the footballs. One of the things that we've talked about for a while with multiple Ravens corners. Jalen Armour-Davis is a guy that also struggles to locate the football. Great technique, but can struggle to locate the football. Brandon Stevens, awesome technique, can plaster on guys, but he also does not locate the football. So that's the next evolution in Brandon Stevens' game, right? Play the receiver, but then just get your head back. Get your head back. Those are plays that have to be able to happen. I still think Brandon Stevens is a good corner, right? Don't get me wrong. But I think it's been a little more of a shaky year for him as opposed to what we saw last year, where he was pretty much shut down for most of the season. And yeah, Mike, good point here. Justin Tucker back in the element. Again, it's these guys who, tough start to the season. Mark Andrews, tough start. Justin Tucker, tough start. But man, if there's one thing that you know about this team is that they are absolutely going to go out there. And I mean, look, I'm betting on the Hall of Fame resume of Justin Tucker more than I was like, oh, is he washed? I'm betting on the sample size we saw from Mark Andrews more than, oh, is he washed? So that is my opinion on that. Just trying to see if there's anything else I have missed. Quotes, and yeah, Lamar Jackson on Jayden Daniels. I believe he deserves all the hype. Played a tremendous game out there. They just came up a little bit short. Epic quarterback battle between Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels. That's all I have for you here today, though, on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. Appreciate all the support here on these live edition shows. We go live after every single Ravens game, win or lose. Hopefully no ties. I despise ties. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Be sure to follow along in audio form for the exact same thing. Same show, both video and audio form, so you're not missing out on any content. We'll be right back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down this Ravens and Commanders game even more. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens for another great edition of the show. Appreciate everybody. See you soon.